So I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of what I'm talking to here, but while I'm talking, please read. So at the same time, you can do two things at one time. Basically, I learned with Rav Noach. I was privileged to be his student back in the 60s. Yeah, I'm that old. But he began bringing to fruition his dreams back in the 70s. I visited him in 1975, and he was the attraction of the new young people that were visiting Israel for the first time and visiting the Western Wall. And the attraction was this the world famous Rabbi Meir Schuster, who became a legend in his own times. In his own life, Rabbi Meir Schuster must have met and spoke to at least 20,000 Jewish people who had very little background in Judaism. He just spent his days patrolling the Western Wall, asking people would you like to come to a yeshiva. In fact, the old saying was, if you've been to Israel and you haven't been to yeshiva, you haven't been to Israel. If you've been to LA, you haven't been to Disneyland, you haven't been to LA. If you've been to New York, you haven't been to the Statue of Liberty, you haven't been to New York. If you've been to Israel and you haven't been to a yeshiva, you just don't know what Israel's all about. So that was the whole idea. It was a great selling point. And in fact, people were intrigued. And one of the things that intrigued him was because Rav Noach was known as the philosopher of life. And a lot of his philosophy comes out through the 48 ways. Now, the 48 ways are basically a listing of 48 different steps of how to acquire Torah. What does that mean? Let's examine the words. 48 steps means not one of 48, but all 48 to become an acquisition to Torah. That means what? Torah is something that you want to not just learn, study, appreciate, look at. You want to acquire it. You want to make it part of you so that intrinsically you're thinking the way the Torah thinks, you feel the way the Torah feels about ideas. So therefore, no doubt that you want to acquire the Torah. So in acquiring Torah, the Mishnah lists 48 ways. Where's the Mishnah? The Mishnah is in the 6th chapter of Pirkei Avot, of Ethics of the Fathers. It's in the 6th paragraph, the 6th Mishnah of that 6th chapter. You can look it up, see it on your own. It's in the prayer books, Shabbat afternoon, and you can look at it and read it and get a perspective on it. We're going to learn a lot about it this evening. Now, most of us all knew the 48 ways existed, but no one paid a whole lot of attention to it. Rav Noach brought it to an art form. He said, let's get into this, because when we get into this, we're going to change who we are. Basically, the idea of the 48 ways became known as not only the 48 ways to Torah, but the 48 ways to life. Because Torah is a Torah's chayim. It's a Torah of life. It's a way of life. It's how people conduct their lives. Now, life, as Rav Noach understood it, is defined in one specific area, and that is your brain, your head, your thinking. The difference between us and animals, we think. Therefore, thinking is the key. If thinking is the key, these become the 48 ways to wisdom, to becoming wise, to really dealing with life properly and with a good sense of wisdom and a good sense of choice. So, just about as I write in the 4th paragraph here, the aftermath of the 60s was a crazy time. Believe me, I lived through it, although I was fortunate enough not to be in America at the time. I was grateful to be in Israel. I was really protected from the craziness that existed in America. Israel was not that crazy, not yet. Then anyway. Please give out that.
There is room over here.
Sign-in sheet, everybody. Okay. Now, the idea here is that Rav Noach believed the following. If you take a look at the 5th paragraph, he believed that the 48 ways could be used as a method for improving the quality of your life, the quality of your character, and the quality of your productivity. It became extremely popular. People loved it. It's well received by was well received by the second students who came to yeshiva to experience religious Judaism for the first time. Rav Noach believed, in the 5th paragraph, that Jewish secular college students were estranged from religious values and opposed to them. He felt that the 48 Ways would break down the barriers and expose to students the humanity of what Judaism is all about and the wisdom of it. Therefore, Rav Noach made some presentations about and illustrations of real-life situations where people's habits reflected instinctive truths of Torah. Now, the rest of you can read on your own. Basically, I was, as I said, I was a privileged to be his student, and definitely, I mean, he was my Rebbe and he changed my life. Whereas I had very little confidence in myself and had no real ambition to become an ambassador for Judaism or ambition to learn Torah, to be a teacher of Torah. He enthused me, he inspired me, and he brought out my talents. The essence, but I wasn't introduced to the 48 Ways as a student. He didn't do it in the 60s. He did it more in the 70s when I came to visit him. By that time, I was already married. I had some children. I lived in L.A. I was teaching Torah anyway. I had already been inspired. But I came and I spent the summer with Rav Noach watching what he was doing in this new yeshiva called Nation Torah. And on the first day that I was there, I said to him, would you mind if I sat in one of your shiur, one of your lectures? And he said, well, Tzvi, I don't think it's really for you. I mean, it's for beginners, really. And I said to him, would you give me a chance just to experience being in it with you? And he said, sure. So I sat for the hour and a half that he spent on one of the 48 Ways. And I walked over to him afterwards, and we were that close. I softly stroked his beard, and I said, Rebbe, you are a genius. And he laughed. I was taken and enamored with and totally absorbed with 48 Ways. And I became committed to it as a method of learning, not just about Judaism, but about life and how Judaism views life. And so basically what we try to do in the place like starting here is to learn how Judaism views life and what you can do with Torah to be able to really improve the quality of your life, your productivity, your understanding, your decision making, and becoming a better person. And so, with this in mind, what I did with the 48 Ways, and there was prior people that had already did it as well, but I did it my own way, because I broke it down into what I called 8 different sections. These 8 different sections of the 48 Ways became the sense of what the method of improvement. The key was the method of how this works. And I want to share this with you in what I've written up here, in which I have done the... I have it up. Do you have a copy machine here in the shul?
No, it's upstairs. How many do you need?
Well, let's see how much I got. Let's give this out. Give this out and let's hope that we can. Okay. So see what we can do with this here, and if there's any way, if there's someone didn't get, so we'll make sure that that person gets it. But look on in the meantime and share. Okay? Everyone got something so far? Well, anybody missing? All good so far, right? Everyone's got it. Are we all good? 48 ways to acquire Torah. 48 ways to wisdom. We got enough? Everybody's got it?
Is it good?
Beautiful. Everyone's got it. Okay. The areas of growth are the ways that I divided the 48 ways. The first 9 ways is in the first, and then so forth and so on. The first way is called intellectual. The second, social. There are 3 ways in social development. 9 ways in intellectual development. There are 3 ways in educational development. 4 ways in physical. 6 ways in physical. 4 ways in mental. Number 6 is the 4 ways in personal. 6 ways in emotional. 15 ways in spiritual. What the first step that Judaism and Torah is saying within the scope of the 48 ways is that these are the 8 areas that you must pay attention to in your life. These are the 8 areas of life that you need to understand as defining you and defining your life. This is how you live. You live with intellect, you live with social, you live with education, and so forth and so on. All these things are things how you live. The first thing that you have to learn about life is that nothing is more important, more fundamental, more basic than using your head. Have an open mind, learn how to think, learn how to make proper decisions. Intellectual is the bottom line. And the intellectual means what? How do I think? How does Judaism teach us to think? How does Judaism teach us to make the right decisions and to be able to discern truth from falsehood? How does Judaism do the Torah teach us this? And the 48 ways is going to give us this whole direction how to do it. Let's take a look at intellectual just for a starter. What are some of the things intellectual? So let's take a look at the next paragraph. Number 1, intellectual development. There are 9 steps. Thinking and studying, listening, articulation, emotional understanding and implementation, awe and appreciation, fear and clarity, humbleness and reality, joy, purity. These are called the 9 steps of intellectual development, correct thinking, how to think clearly. Now, before I go into any more details on this, I want to suggest the following thought, that the order of the different groups is essential. And that's why intellect must be your fundamental base. If you're not thinking properly, any other information that's going to be presented to you, you won't assimilate well. You won't really grasp. And even if you do, you can make a whole lot of mistakes with it and not really understand what's being said. In order to truly be able to move forward with all the other different disciplines that we have, you've got to learn how to think well. We'll maybe take a look at a little bit of a look at that in a minute. But once we master or teach ourselves or our children or whoever we want to share the art of thinking, the next step is social life. We do live not alone. Maybe we do think alone, but we share our thoughts and people share their thoughts with us. Social life is an imperative factor of how to move forward in life. How to get along, how to deal, how to maximize our relationships. How much do I get out of it in terms of sharing wisdom, understanding thoughts? Do you share with me? Do I share with you? Do you have something to offer me? Do I have something to offer you? How do you select friends? So you'll take a look at social development down on the bottom over there, and it says, 1 is serving the scholars. Get yourself a good teacher, a good Rebbe. Secondly, selection of friends. Make sure you the right friends for the right for the kind of person you are. And sharp discussion with students is a third factor, which we will discuss at the later on. But do you see the point of realizing that after you have become intellectually developed, and of course, children are really intellectually developed, as you well know, and they need stimulation and help and guidance from parents to be able to think and make the right decisions. Parents who are particularly in touch with their kids and giving them the direction they need. Well, then of course we said you need to learn how to interact. So let's say a child until the age of 4 is mostly at home. So what are parents doing with that child? Teaching him or her how to think, giving them challenges, teaching them how to count maybe, how to process ideas, how to know what's right or wrong, when to go potty, when to do this, when to go to sleep. I mean, and then children learn and are trained in figuring things out. Now they have to learn how to do so within a social setting. That's where nursery school comes in. That's where kindergarten comes in. And that's long before the education. Long before you're getting into schooling, you're learning how to think and you're learning how to get along. And that's really till you're about 6 or 7 when you start getting an education. And that's where educational is the third level. What's a good education? Look at the bottom, you see, go to yeshiva for a starter. If you want to learn about Judaism, that's the best way to go. Now, if you want to learn about how to build a bridge, I would suggest you go to architect school. If you want to learn how to fly an airplane, get flying lessons. You want to learn how to be a doctor, go to medical school. You want to learn about Judaism, well, that's easy. And that's pretty obvious. That's where they that's the place where they know about Judaism the most. Part of that education, of course, is the education of the written Torah, the oral Torah, the Chumash, the Mishnah, and all of these things. So basically, this is what we call basic development, those first 3 steps, which covers, as we can see, 9, 3, and 3, 6, 15 ways. At this point in time, it seemed to me that there was a whole bunch of other issues being brought up by the 48 ways that suggested that life would present impediments and how to deal with impediments. And the first impediment that was met with was the issue of physicality. And as children grow and as become teens, become aware of themselves and their bodies and their bodily interests or bodily needs and so forth, we learn that there is a specific attitude that the 48 Ways takes to it to learn how to minimize it. And I think you can see that when it says physical number 4, 6 ways. Look at the other side, on the right-hand side. It says physical development, and that physical development has 6 steps, and all of them are moderation. Moderation. See right over here. See it over here? There's one over here. Right? Moderation. In other words, basically, any form of overindulgence will lead to a limitation, if not a destruction, of what you've accomplished in the first 3 steps. What you've accomplished in terms of your growth as a learning person, as a thinking person, what you've accomplished in terms of, let's say, your ability to get along and your ability to learn to go to school and get a good education, can be very, very definitively compromised by physical issues. And that's why a lot of college students go to college unprepared for the outside world, in dorms, away from parents and parental control. That's assuming there was parental control in the first place, you understand? And they don't know how to handle the issues that are being thrust in front of them. I mean, the issues of the fun and the games and the plays and all the parties and what's being served at the parties and who's at the parties and what's being done at the parties, all of these things. And of course, there can definitely be severely harmful to your health. I mean, addiction of any sort can be destructive. All sorts of diseases are found with STDs. Definitely, you need to develop healthy habits. So the first thing the 48 Ways teaches us is called moderation. The way to develop healthy habits so that it doesn't destroy what you've accomplished up until now, and it allows you to grow as a person from what you put in up until now, means that you learn how to deal with these issues and learn how to deal with some of the challenges of food, sleep, and that includes all forms of addiction and drinking and obesity and things of that nature. And sex is certainly an issue that can certainly overwhelm young people and get a host of young people in a lot of trouble. And then there's also the issue of business too, which we have to talk about, because business is something that a lot of students are very, well, we all are, frankly. I'm not going to say students, we all are preoccupied with the issue of making money. Having enough to provide our needs. And we're told even here, the need is to moderate. Moderation is the way that the 48 Ways the Torah teaches us how to deal with the issues facing us so that we can continue on our growth path. However, number 5 is mental health. Mental health, again, provides a great impediment, a great obstacle towards growth. In fact, for as much as physical health and its neglect can harm, mental health can kill. Mental health requires dealing with issues that allow you to think freely. Well, if you take a look at mental development, you'll see some of the things that are harming us. And as developed people, particularly as developed young adults, we face these things all the time. They include frustration, depression, egocentric, fear, paranoia. These are severe mental problems that people all suffer from. The question is, how do we deal with them? We're all going to be attacked by them. Everyone's going to have somewhat of a bit of them. What do? So we learned, and we'll learn it when we learn that particular area of the mental, is that there are specific instructions that our Mishnah is going to tell us how to deal with it. For instance, we learn patience versus frustration. We learn using a good heart versus depression. We learn faith in the sages versus ego. We learn accepting suffering versus fear. So a lot of these things, of course, don't make a whole lot of sense just yet. But let me just finish up, and then we'll throw out the questions. Okay. Number 6 is personal. Take a look at personal on the other side. Personal 4 ways. Know one's place. Know who you are. Know where you belong. Know what spot you occupy. Be happy with who you are. But be discreet in your speech. In other words, add that ingredient of humbleness to your personality, so that your personal does not indulge in egocentricity. And finally, don't claim any credit for self. Be thankful to Hashem. At this point in time, frankly, most programs dealing with self-help, groups, group therapies, people gathering together, dealing with issues, stop right here. Right here, if you can manage these 5 or 6 steps, you have achieved a really healthy life in this world. You really are a put together person. You're using your head to think, you get along with people, you've got a good education, you've dealt with the issues to protect yourself against physical indulgence that could harm you, you've got your head clear in terms of mental clarity, and you know who you are. And you're ready to greet the world, and make $1 million, if not more. You're a capable person. But here's where the Torah stands out and says there's more to life than news, sports, and weather. With all due respect to the news reporter. There is more to life. What's this extra point of life Torah is teaching us is essential to the enrichment of life. And it's essential to a Torah way of life. And it's essential to what Judaism is all about. And that is, number 7, the emotional. Emotional simply means that one should become emotionally attached and use the power of it. There is a power that we all have inside us called passion. Passion is a great power, and when we unleash it, we can conquer the world. But we can also harm ourselves with it. Be careful. But when we talk about, let's say, Judaism, talk about God, right? We say that it is not sufficient to believe in God. It is not sufficient to respect God, or to listen to God, or to have fear and reverence for God, or appreciate God. That's the non-Jewish world. And that's a reality that, in fact, is good. For the Jew, you must love God. For the Jew, you embrace all of life with a love, with a passion. Not indifferent, not simple, not, as we say, half-watered or parve, but with a full sense of connection. You shall love the Lord your God. V'yohavta Hashem Elokecha means all of that you are trying to accomplish has to be filled with love. Has to be filled with a certain sense of excitement. And so some of the loves that we have, and you'll notice that the emotional development over here, the bottom right over here, is all about love. It's all about love. It's about love Hashem, love people, love righteousness, love straightness. We'll figure out the difference between the two. And love criticism. Now, some people call it the strength of the character to take criticism. In Judaism, we say, love it. Pay a guy to take it off. Pay. How much do you want? I'll pay anything you want. Tell me what I'm going to want. Now, just to give you an example of that, suppose I were to walk in today into the classroom with my tie like that, my glasses like that, my helmet like that. I mean, a little funny, no? Well, who's going to have the courage to go up and tell me, Rabbi, fix yourself up? Whoever does cares about me. So what am I going to say? Shut up, mind your own business? Or am I going to say, thank you, I love you. I love the criticism you're giving me. You get the point? So this is what we call emotion. Emotion is an important part of the human, part of human dimension, human spirit and personality, but it's an imperative for us. It may not be imperative for the rest of the world. A guy goes out and gets a job, maybe he's a CEO of a company, and he makes a lot of money, makes a lot of good decisions, he's a good brain, he's got a lot of smarts. He doesn't have to necessarily love his company to be successful, does he? He doesn't necessarily have to love his product, does he? In Judaism, you gotta love the product. To be successful in Judaism, to be successful in life, you gotta love life. So this is some of the messages we're giving across. The final message, and I guarantee you this spiritual one, number 8, which has 15 ways to it, which is described all over here, right, on the back page. Again, in Judaism, is an imperative. We believe that to truly be a complete person, you need to have a spiritual aspect about you. You need to have a life that appreciates the esoteric, appreciates a sense of beauty that the others ignore. Now, people walk by a nice bed of roses, and some ignore it, and busy and whatever, and others go, how beautiful, how awesome, how meaningful, how much it makes me feel good in the world. In other words, it's a certain spiritual sense of life, that there is a beauty in the world. And that it makes it imperative to say, where's all this coming from? I want to discover spirituality. I want to figure this out and find out where it is. What's the source of this? What's the source of the magic that makes the sun shine in the morning and bring the moon out at night? What's the source of all these phenomena? Most of us take it for granted. Spirituality says you can't. Spirituality says you must embrace it, figure it out, discover it, and look for it, and let it enrich your life. Because when it does, then the decisions you make will not only be based upon chokhmah, wisdom, but also be based upon instinct, an instinct that's fully developed. And instinctively you say, that's what it is. Oftentimes, many times, if you study the Chumash, the Parasha, for instance, you look at the commentary of Rashi. And a lot of times Rashi makes some sense. He says, well, it's really this way because the words imply this, and it gives a whole new, deeper appreciation. But many times Rashi will say, my sense of the meaning of the passage is really based upon Libi Omerli. What does it mean, Libi Omerli? My heart tells it to me. In other words, he's got a very developed heart, a very developed sense of the mysterious, of the instinct, an instinctive sense of the mysterious, and of what you don't see. Do we develop, and can we develop an awareness of, an appreciation of those things that we can't see? That's spirituality. How we go about that, again, is the 15 steps in the back. This is how I understand the sense of the 48 ways and what it can do for us in making our lives better and making our Judaism more enriched. What I suggested to Rabbi Bookstein is that we have, after this intro, an 8-session series of which we would work and deal with each one of these clusters of ways. Each one of these how do you call it? Each one of these subject matters. So we could try, for instance, to take a look at intellectual development for tonight, and do social next week, do educational the week after, physical the week after, and so forth and so on. We may not do all of them today, so then we do a little more, and then we progress where we left off. But what's important for us to do now is to select, to take a look at the intellectual development for a point, and see some of the things that are there, and try to figure out what's of greatest interest to you, what means a whole lot to you, and what I can say about it, and how Rav Noach explained how these things operate. So, for instance, how does thinking and study operate? So, of course, Rav Noach asked the famous question. He started off, he said, well, 48 ways to Torah, 48 ways to wisdom. Number 1, think and study. Duh. Isn't that self-obvious? Isn't that given? So what's he saying? What's the real message here? What's the real message of how do you think properly? How do you study? So the first thing that Noach understood and he shared with us is what is called the open mind. To understand the open mind, it's called clue into the truth, or clue into a search for the truth. So in order to explain that better, let me share with you a blockism. You may like it, you may not, but there's a blockism. You feel free to throw tomatoes at it. I believe the whole world's crazy. Every one of us. We're all nuts. What's the difference between, we all got mishigasim. We all got idiosyncrasies and goofiness about us. I'm goofy here, goofy there, whatever. What's the difference between someone who is functionally fit and someone who needs to be locked up in an insane asylum? What's the difference? We're all nutty in some way or another. Okay, he or she is a little bit more than me. That's not the real point. The real point is different. The real point is that a person who is not functional can't grow because they're not clued in to the message. And when they're told about this or that, they don't accept it because they're just closed-minded about it. How many times in my life have I heard someone tell me, don't confuse me with the facts? Yeah, think about that. Don't confuse me with the facts. I have what I have, I know what I know, done. Wait a second. I might have some new information that you have learned about. When you want to be interested. Don't confuse me with the facts. So a person who is clued in has an open mind. He's anxious to learn. He wants to learn. He wants to know. So therefore, that person is going to be clued in. The difference between someone who's totally nutty is he's not clued in. He's clueless. And the person who is aware and thinking is clued in. So now, when we say the presentation of new information, what does that mean? That means basically that you got to be open-minded. Open-minded means, as Rav Noach understood it, that you're constantly thinking. There's no time off. There's no vacation. There's no a coffee break. That is a disservice to the mind. So a man takes a coffee break and he's working hard on his job, whatever it is, and he takes a coffee break to get his mind off the job. Okay. But he should be thinking about something else. You just can't daydream away life, except when you sleep. When you sleep, that's the excuse for not thinking. Other than that, thinking should be done all the time. When it says thinking and studying, it means all the time. It means no daydream and no closedness of the mind. And I'm not interested in learning about this. Now, of course, you might come upon things that a guy will say to you. A guy knocks on my door and he says, "Hello, I'm a witness for this religion, and I want you to. Would you like to take?" So what am I going to say to them? Open-minded, want to hear what you have to say? Well, if in fact he's not Jewish, I have no interest in what he has to say. Why? Because I've already examined the facts, if I have, and I've clarified the point where what he's selling is nonsense. But if he's Jewish, then I'd love to hear what he has to say. So Rav Noach met an atheist for the first time. And he said to the atheist, he said, Rabbi, he said to him, do you really believe in God? Rav Noach said, I'm a rabbi. He said, gee, I could have sworn you were an intelligent man. You really believe in that thing? Well, I'm an atheist. You're an atheist? Said Rav Noach with fascination. Wow, that's exciting. A real live atheist. You mean you've proven beyond a shadow of a doubt that there's no God? Well, I've worked all these years to prove there is a God. I'd like to hear your proofs. Prove to me there's no God. Now you know that nobody who's an atheist has ever done that. Atheists are content with the idea that I don't have to prove nothing. You got to prove it because you got to prove there's a God. But no, turns the tables on him. You prove it. You prove there's no God. So the guy, he says, well, what I really meant to say was, I'm an agnostic. I'm not. I think that I know that I can prove that you can never know God. So Noah said, okay, good. You made your proofs. You can prove that you can never know God. Is that agnostic? Tell me your proofs. So the poor guy is stammering by this stage of the game in the discussion with Rav Noach. And he says, what I really meant to say was I'm not sure about God. You're not sure? Come to the yeshiva. We'll teach you all about it. Idea is that Rav Noach had no problem entering into the discussion about these issues. That's the open mind. I'm willing to hear what you have to say. Are you willing to hear what I have to say? Are you open-minded? So the first day, the young man walks into the yeshiva over there back in 1974 in Jerusalem, right? And the old city that we had just conquered from the Arabs in the '67 war. The yeshiva Torah was there at the time, and it's fledgling little buildings. And he would walk in and he would say, I don't notice a God, and Rav Noach would say, are you interested in finding out? Don't confuse me with the facts. My facts are there is no God. Rav Noach would say, well, listen, if you want to be closed-minded, and everybody knows that you don't want to be closed-minded. But that's the whole idea of what he anyways, number one. You have to be open to hear another person. So this applies to anything in life. So now, I wear suits most of the time. I don't want to tell you how much they cost because I'm not a rich man. But one day I find myself over there in Rodeo Drive. And all those shops there with all the suits and all the wonderful clothing, all priced 3 times what I pay, 4 times what I pay. Anyway, walking down the street, and people say to me, why don't you look inside over there and see if you want to buy a suit? So I said, are you crazy? Me buy a suit here? I'm out of my league. That's a closed mind. You never know. You could very well go to the next shop and find what? Find a sale. Be open-minded. So a young man decides one day that he is looking to try and find a nice girl to marry, and someone suggests him this girl, and he says, I'm not interested. Why aren't you interested? Well, I'm just not, it's not my type. What's type, Schmeip? What's type? What's type? Open your mind. You may find this girl to be exciting, dynamic, and you might find her to be the one that you want to marry. Don't let opportunity pass you by. Open your mind. Now someone suggests to you, I'd like to get a good job somewhere. I got this opportunity for you. Great job. Not interested. Why not? Well, I don't think I can handle it. How do you know? We need open-mindedness to go and develop and grow. Otherwise, we go nowhere. Not with a job, not with a shidduch, not with a... That's not me, is it? Yeah, it's me. Let it go. Don't pay attention.
Pay it.
No, it's the Yetzer Hara, it's the Satan who's disturbing my class. It's a Satan. So basically, you have to realize that you need to be open-minded. So in being open-minded, then what you do is you go on to step 2. What's step 2? Step 2 is listening. Are you listening to what I'm saying? Do you hear what I'm saying? What it really means is, do you understand what I'm saying? Listening is understanding. You understand? It's not just hearing words. It's hearing thoughts, ideas. Do you hear what I'm trying to convey? Do you hear the message? Well, sometimes you may not hear it that well. So what should you do? You should raise your hand and ask a question. Don't you think so? Isn't that what you're supposed to do? Not just to let it go by. Because then you fail in number 2. Number 2 is listening. You got to listen. You got to understand. You got to hear it. You disagree? Tell me why. But do you hear what I'm saying? When you say I disagree, and I say to you, why do you disagree? You say, because this, that, and that. And I say to you, yeah, it's a good disagreement, but that's not what I said. That's not what I said. You completely misunderstood me. That's not what I said. That's called learning how to listen. It's an important art to train oneself in. How many arguments between husband and wife occur simply because they misunderstood what each other said? One said something with an inflection that way, the other one said something with an inflection this way, boom. Eishel machlokas. Fire dispute. But people try to... Could you repeat that, please? Could you say that again, please? I don't really grasp what you're saying. I don't think I understand what you're really trying to tell me. All of a sudden, we get communication back. All of a sudden, we have a chance and an open mind that says, I'd like to try and understand the point. And so understanding the point seems to be, in other words, you're suggesting this girl for me to date, and I wasn't open about it. Well, let me be open about it, which simply means what? Talk to me about it, and I will listen. I will understand. Tell me more. I'll ask some questions. Now I'll decide. Yeah, she's right for me. No, she's not. That's a little more intellectual. A little more understanding. You use your head. The job, same thing. Let me ask her questions about the job. What's the conditions of the job? How many hours? What's the pay? What's my tasks? But you didn't ever got that far if your mind was closed. Once your mind was open, then you started listening. And you started hearing. And if the discussion, let's say on religion, right? And let's say the guy says something really, really stupid or off the wall, you can easily pinpoint that because you'll listen to the guy. Say that again, please. You really believe that who's the Messiah? Let me hear it again. And why? What's the point? What's your religion? I mean, you tear the guy down to pieces. Easily, because you figured it out. You understood what he said. But in understanding what he said, I had to do that. I got to do that with the suit of clothes on Modea too. So I'm walking down Modea Drive, and guess what? I actually open-mindedly enough looked into a store, and I saw a sale. Whoa! And the suit appealed to me. So what do you think I did? As an intelligent human being, since I saw the possibility, I got to hear more about the suit. So in hearing more about the suit, I walk into the store and I ask the salesman, tell me where it comes from, tell me how it fits, tell me how it looks, tell me just turn it. You know what?
Someone want to buy your book, Rabbi.
What?
Someone want to buy your book.
What's the problem?
They started calling.
Sit down.
It's not done.
Who wants to buy you?
Okay. Anyway, I mean, the point is, be open-minded. I want to hear the suit. Tell me all about it. Tell me where it comes from. Tell me what's the fabric. Tell me what's made of. Tell me. Let me see the color. Let me see the fashion. Let me see how it's cut. This, that, and that. Okay. I'm disinterested. Okay. So leave the store. No, I'm not disinterested. Wait a second. It catches my imagination. Whoa. This suit has potential. This girl has potential. This job has potential. This religion has potential. Let me hear more about you. All of a sudden, I say, well, the next step. Articulation. Say it over. Speak about it. Talk about it. Share with your friends. See if it makes sense to them. Share with people. See if it has some substance to it. Share with your best friend. What do you think about this girl? Should I go out with her? No. Share with your best friend. And if you really, really want to articulate it and really sense its real truth to it, if it's the suit, try it on. Try it on. This wasn't fitting. It fit once, I promise you. It may not fit now, but I promise you, if I didn't buy it this way. But try it. Try it. And of course, if you're in a classroom and a teacher's telling you some good words of wisdom, and you're hearing it, open to it, and you want to try and articulate it, see how it feels, take notes. Take notes. But any articulation at all formulates a greater truth to it. Why do we require you to say the Shema twice a day? Because the truth of God's oneness in this world must be re-emphasized by articulation. It's not enough to look at the words or to read the words like you're reading a newspaper. You got to say them. In fact, when it comes to the Shema, you got to say them a whole lot more than the rest of the davening. The rest of the davening you may say softly, but the Shema must be allowed. Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu, right? Because why? Because if this is a truth, the further articulation of it brings it home and brings it into your whole being, brings it into your bones. It gives it a reality that you sense each and every time you say it. Each and every time you say Hashem Echad, you know what happens? You sense ever so slightly another dimension of what it means for God's oneness. You become a little more aware, a little more deeper in understanding. It's such a beautiful experience, but you got to articulate. So now, we learn another thing about learning, about intellectual development, using your thinking properly, because you do have to make a decision. You do have to. And decision making is part of the brain, part of the decisions, and part of the learning process. Learning is not for entertainment. It is not for new information simply to hear and to play with. Now, when you go to school, you go to college, whatever it is, you're learning it for the class, and this particular class is irrelevant to you because it's not. When there was what they call those things, requirements, prerequisites, you had to take it. So what you do with it? You took it, you paid attention to it, you passed the test on it. What did you do the next day? You burnt those books. So it had no relevance to you. Stupid. Judaism teaches that learning to be real must be implemented. You got to learn how to do it. If you're going to learn how to change a flat tire, when you're stuck out in the middle of nowhere and you can't reach AAA, and you've got to change that flat with your donut in the back, you're going to learn how to do it. And learning how to do it means, let's say someone comes and says, I'll offer you to teach it to you. So I'm going to teach you. So you're open-minded, you want to learn, you're interested in it, and frankly you're thinking about it, right? And you're asking me questions, and you're trying to figure it out. And then I say to you, well now, try it. Okay, made one mistake, two mistakes, but keep on trying till you get it right. And then one day, 5 years later, heaven forbid, you're stuck on somewhere and you know how to do it. but you got to do it first. If you stay the whole time doing nothing but hearing, questioning, figuring, thinking, and never doing, you'll never learn how to do it. If I want to teach you about Judaism and Torah, you got to try it. If you don't, then you'll never really understand what we're all about. If I want to teach you and tell you if you really want to see whether or not this girl's right for you, what should you do? Take her out on a date, for God's sake. Got nothing to lose. A couple of bucks. Big deal. Come on, it's only money. Really, you just got to do it. You got to learn to do. Doing is part of the learning process. Action is part of the learning process. Teach your little girl how to go potty. Teaching my little granddaughter. My daughter allows me sometimes. So the idea is that she's learning by practice, and all of a sudden it becomes real. You see, and she can do it on her own. That's the whole idea of implementation. Is really part of the learning process. Doing it is not just an action; it is a learning. Doing is learning. And so I go out on a date, or I buy the suit, or I try on the suit, and I like the suit, and maybe I even like the girl. I really have these couple wonderful dates, it's really great and everything. Now, what's the next step? Take a look. Number 4, emotional understanding, implementation. Emotional understanding means what? We call it in Hebrew, binat halev. It's your heart. Not binat harosh, binat halev. What's the difference? The difference is very simple. It's one of the major issues that people talk about in schools of education. And they say as follows. I can teach a child that 5 plus 5 is 10. And 10 minus 5 is 5. Real easy. And monkey see, monkey do. He'll figure it out. He'll keep on doing it. And he'll learn, I guess. But he doesn't understand the concept. If you take him to a store and buy a $5 item, you give the store man a $10 bill, and he gives you $5 back. Now, the child understands. It works. It's true. It's real. That's called binat halev, not binat harosh. It's called, do you see that this is true? Do you see that this works? Well, if you do, I went out with the girl and gee, it's a great girl. Wow. This is a great idea. Now, with the suit, since I liked it so much, I bought it. But I will say that there is a money-back guarantee in case I don't like it. With the girls, a little different. You just can't,
Sorry, you said binat
Halev. Binat harosh, we're not talking about binat
No,
harosh.
so you said the 2 different ones.
We go binat halev. Binat halev. The lev is your heart. Do you understand that this is true? Okay? Do you understand that this is what works? That's the idea. So to be able to get that understanding, so you go out a few more times with the girl. And then the process continues and strengthens. And eventually you come to a point where that's it. Either yes or no. Either you propose or you leave. Because, how much more can you date and shop and window shop until you figure out who's the right person for you? Well, I can get somebody better. That's dumb. If you say with a suit, I understand I can get a better suit, go down a block, maybe to another shop. But how can you say I can get another person that's better? There's no such thing as better. What is there? There's it's right for you or it's not right for you. You feel it's right. To go any further is wrong. If you feel that the teachings you've been exposed to in terms of Judaism and in terms of Torah are sensible to you, and they talk to you, and they resonate with you, there's no need to go any further. Buy it. Buy it. Now, that's called, in Judaism, commitment. Now, that's the scariest word in America. Commitment? Well, I'm not really ready yet to commit. So the guy's learning, he comes about shul, he wants to come to learn, he comes to shul, he comes to classes, he comes here, he comes there. I'm not yet ready yet. I need another 6.5 years to make a commitment. With the girl, he needs another 8.5 years. It's ridiculous. You do have to commit somewhere, somehow, right? I apologize, ladies, for putting this in the masculine, but the same thing goes for the girl as well. Believe me, she's got to make some decisions too. See the right guy and so forth. Point is that when it comes to, let's say, making a commitment, there is a money-back guarantee with the suit. There's also a money-back guarantee. I won't say it's advisable, but it is. I mean, if you do make a commitment, then you make a mistake. I mean, it happens. Heaven forbid, engagement is wrong, divorce happens. It's not, so we say, forever. But you will see that there will be one of these ways that will say forever. When a commitment is a commitment. And with Judaism, it's the same thing. In Judaism, you might very well say, I'm committed to Shabbos. I'm not yet committed to kosher. You can say that. Okay. So that means this is where your commitment is, but you need to enlarge your commitment. It simply means what? That commitments have different stages of commitment. But you got to start somewhere. The first place you start in commitment is called, what does your heart tell you? What does your instinct tell you? Rashi says, Libi Omerli, what's my heart tell me? What does it tell me? And then, and to be honest with yourself, it's called emotional understanding. This is called Binat Halev, with your heart. This is called implementation. Put it into practice, try it, work it out. You think that this presentation regarding Shabbos makes sense to you, you should be in shul next Shabbos without question. Now you might say, well, but Atamagat, they didn't do it for me. Okay, I can hear that. So then you have to go back to the drawing board and think again on it. Or maybe think about something else. But the point is that once you hear something that really resonates, then why are we not moving fast enough? We're scared of commitment. So we have to not be afraid. We have to follow because we followed the process. The first step was open your mind. Second step was ask all the questions, get all the information. Third step is, we tried it. And the fourth step is, well, I've been in shul over Shabbos for the last 6 months, and it's really been working for me. Get married to the Shabbos. It's worked for you, right? I mean, it's so you got to move with it. You can't stand still with it. That's called the fourth step of the learning process. Now, we're out of time here now, which I imagine we would be, which means that the next session we need the next 5 steps of the intellectual. Basically, you will see that in the next 5 steps, the commitment becomes enriched, enlarged, it becomes more meaningful, it becomes more powerful each time. Ultimately, there is the final commitment. That's number 9, purity. What's purity mean? I'm absolutely 100% sure. Now, how can you be 100% sure? How can you be? How can you be? So, here's the case. Man comes in, and Reuben's accused of killing Shimon. So Reuben's on trial. Now the prosecutor will try to use all the evidence he's got to convince the judge that Reuben is guilty. The defense attorney will do all that he can with the same evidence to prove that Reuben is innocent. And that's what they're both paid for. The judge sits on the bench, and he is paid to be arbitrary. He's paid to be objective. He's not paid to find him guilty or innocent. He's paid to find the truth. So now he's paid to find the truth. he's got to be real objective. And that's why Rabbi Block would say to his students, and I say it to you as well, you all must become judges eventually, with no interest whatsoever, but purely, completely the truth. Does God exist or doesn't? Is he right or not? Is this the right person, not the right person? Right job, not the right job? You gotta make a commitment. And in that commitment, it's gotta be pure. And I will show you next week how that purity manifests itself. And it's fascinating. But I will tell you this, that as you do this, and you come to this realization, Rav Noach would say to one of his people, Your Honor, decision please. Your Honor, decision please. Your Honor, decision please. Your Honor. Now, Your Honor is the judge. And the judge has to make what we call a objective arbitrary decision, right? A total, complete commitment. Because guess what happens? If he says Reuben is guilty, Reuben goes to the electric chair. If he says Reuben's innocent, Reuben goes out in the streets. Do you hear how serious a decision that is? That's how serious the decision is to determine if you're going to live with God or not. Whether or not you're going to become a devotee to Hashem and follow the mitzvot and believe deeply that all this has consequence in your life is something you have to decide. You just can't coast with it. And by the way, there's no mistrials either. You have to make a decision. And that's really what we're all called upon. Most people avoid it. Avoid it because they don't realize that, or they don't like the idea of making a decision, which is going to cause them to do what? To have obligations. To live by that decision. You follow? So that's why, ultimately, the learning process must be one that brings you into a position of this is where you're at. If you find, for instance, let's say, people who reconsider their lives to become more religious, it's simply because they never made a commitment to the minimization of their religion, or of any religion. They had no commitment to it. I mean, like Judaism, most people on the street, you see 90% of Jewish people on the street, take it or leave it. I mean, there's no real commitment one way or the other. No one's coming up and saying, I don't believe this is true. No one's saying that. It's just, no one's facing it. But you do have to face it to be a true intellectual, to be a true thinker, to be true to yourself. You do have to face it. And you got to make a decision. And frankly, there are other people that will avoid it and say, life is just good as it is. There's no real need to shake the boat, so to speak. And again, they're not facing facts or facing issues that could enrich their lives and make it really superb and really affect their whole appreciation. You see? So that's why learning is such a major issue. They used to say 48 ways to Torah, which is 48 ways to wisdom. Torah wisdom, Torah learning. What are you talking about? I'm talking about using your head here, getting you to make the right decisions. So we've learned the process, the first 4 steps of how to think clearly, how to know you're somewhere near the truth. And in so doing, we'll see, and the 4th one includes at least a minimum commitment. The next 5 help appreciate that, establish that, help move it forward, help you get a better perspective of it, until the point is that you're 100% committed, and that's the ultimate goal. Once we get that thinking process done, and you got to practice. If you really want to do this right, and Rav Noach would say this, you got to spend the next week here practicing. Think of all the different things you could do with these first 4 steps that I suggested. Different thoughts, different ideas, different attitudes, different questions, different things in life that are happening, decisions you're making. Think of how you can, and do this exercise. And you'll see that the process gives you greater clarity, makes you make better decisions and better commitments. Do many men and women make decisions regarding their marital status without really, or make a commitment to marriage, let's say, without going through these 4 steps. Loads do. And loads make lots of mistakes because of it. If you go through these 4 steps, you find a way to date properly. You find a way to get the right person and who you're really destined for, you see. So that's the idea of what we want to try to accomplish. I hope you all enjoyed it. I would like to come back next week, God willing, and finish up the intellect, maybe touch a little bit of the social life as well, and we'll present further as we go. Meantime, please keep it with you, enjoy it, learn from it, and grow with it. And if you have any questions, feel free to call. I'm available 24/6.